Right, a very warm welcome to you all at home. We're in Nelspruit today, and this is the venue for the latest in the series of New Age business briefings brought to you by the SABC, and today sponsored by Eskom. And in conversation today, we have the President of South Africa, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, and we have a room full of people here that come from all walks of life, and you'll recognize many of them, senior government officials, ministers, NEC members of the ANC. And the reason being, of course, this last weekend we heard the January 8th statement and also the unveiling of the ANC Manifesto ahead of elections later this year. So we'll be having a conversation about what is in that manifesto, what are the plans that the party has for the next 5 years and beyond, and exactly what the details are with that. And you'll be able to pose your questions to them. But before that, before I introduce the President, it's my great pleasure to welcome the editor of the New Age, who's going to share a few words with us, particularly on this partnership between the SABC and the New Age in bringing these conversations to you. So please put your hands together for Maxine Williams. And Maxine is the editor of the New Age. Maxine?
Your Excellency Jacob Zuma, President of the African National Congress in the Republic of South Africa, Deputy President of the ANC Cyril Ramaphosa and the other senior members of the ANC leadership, Ministers and Deputy Ministers of Cabinet, Premier of Mpumalanga, David Mabuza, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I am Maxine Williams, the editor of the New Age, and it's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you here today. We do this briefing once again in partnership with the SABC and our sponsor today, Eskom. And it is commonly accepted that these briefings have been a runaway success and have transformed public debate in our country. The New Age has once again bucked the trend with the announcement late last year of the 2013 Readership Survey, marking only its third anniversary last month. The paper is rapidly making its mark in a highly competitive newspaper market. The latest industry-wide survey, known as AMS, shows the New Age has recorded the highest growth of 64% in readership among all daily newspapers on a year-on-year basis. The New Age is the only national daily newspaper to have shown growth over the past year. Reasons attributed for the paper's growth are innovative provincial coverage and the introduction of new sections in line with our readers' expectations. We have set out to deliver provincial coverage like no other daily newspaper. Apart from our province-by-province content, we last year launched fully-fledged provincial editions in the Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and the Free State, while the Gauteng edition is being developed into the flagship national one. More provincial rollouts are on the cards this year with the ultimate quest of a regional edition in all of our provinces. These expansion plans are premised on a philosophy that there's much to celebrate in our beautiful country. It's a belief based on critical journalism, applied without fear or favor, but in a constant pursuit of content that's relevant, uplifting, and useful to our readers. And to promote an alternative narrative of our country that highlights the challenges and the problems, but also indicate our country has shown remarkable progress since 1994. Progress referred to extensively in the ANC's election manifesto launched this weekend. But in doing so, it often feels that the New Age is a lonely voice in South Africa's newspaper industry in this quest to promote an alternative and progressive narrative. It is staggering how reactionary forces are able to, and how we allow them to, negate, for instance, in the last week, the achievements of our matriculants and teachers, and the country's successes since 1994, and dire predictions about the country's future. But at the New Age, we want to prove them wrong. Mr. President, in the foreword to a very comprehensive manifesto, you make reference to our struggle, having reached a second phase in which radical socio-economic transformation will be implemented to address poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Millions of our viewers will want to know what this means and how it will impact on their lives, and are therefore looking forward to hearing from you and your senior ANC comrade here today as to what could be expected from the ruling party over the next 5 years. Thank you, Mr. President, and other members of the senior executive of the ANC for making yourselves available today and for this opportunity. It's greatly appreciated. And to you in the audience, I hope you enjoy today's briefing, and once again, welcome.
Thanks, Moxie. The editor of The New Age, Mr. Moxie Williams, thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us. And as you said, progress certainly has been made in the last 20 years. We know that some challenges remain. Poverty, inequality and unemployment, I think, has always been talked about. And I guess what we want to know today is what that radical social transformation is going to be. What are the nuts and bolts and the details in the manifesto that are going to address that? Now, it's my great pleasure now to welcome our sponsor for today, the chairman of Eskom. Please put your hands together for Mr. Zola Tsotsi.
Thank you, Program Director. Your Excellency, President Jacob Zuma, President of the Republic and President of the African National Congress, Deputy President of the African National Congress, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, esteemed members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC and the leaders of the ANC, honorable ministers who are present with us today, the chairperson of the SABC, Ms. Ellen Chabalala, New Age editor, Mr. Moxie Williams, leaders of the business community who are present with us today, both the public and private sector, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, I take this opportunity to thank you for honoring this event with your presence, and also convey my sincere words of thanks to all South Africans for their partnership in the arduous task of keeping the lights on. Furthermore, I convey my sincere words of appreciation to the Eskom staff for helping us to keep our ship afloat during these very difficult and indeed challenging times. Eskom has been sending out a call to all South Africans to save electricity, and I'm glad to say that South Africans are heeding the call and are indeed embracing our 49M campaign. This campaign has been championed by our Minister of Public Enterprises, Mr. Malusi Gigaba, and the Minister has for the past 2 years traveled the length and breadth of the country, calling upon the nation to save electricity. The 49M campaign is born out of Eskom's focus on energy efficiency. And this is a culture that we as a company would like to inculcate, because surely it must become part and parcel of our daily lives. That's a culture that will put the country on the road to a sustainable future. The campaign supports the national aspiration for a better future for all South Africans. Although the response to the campaign has been phenomenal, there's still more work that needs to be done. We are acutely aware of the importance of providing reliable power and supply in a way that will help us to support the objectives of the National Development Plan. Doing so will go a long way towards eradicating poverty and equality. And you, indeed, Mr. President, have heeded us. We have heeded the call that you have made during the launch of the ANC Manifesto on Saturday, where you asked us to support the eradication of poverty and inequality in our country. Eskom thanks all of us for being pillars of strength and support, and we look forward to a more formidable partnership that will help to galvanize the intention of providing the socio-economic conditions in support of the livelihood of our people. In the spirit of the remembrance of our founding father, in closing, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, the founding father of democracy, our beloved Madiba, we say never again shall the supply of electricity falter in pursuit of the growth of so glorious a human achievement as this rainbow nation. I thank you.
On your behalf, ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to say thank you to the chairman of Eskom, Mr. Zolatsotsi, and to everybody at Eskom for keeping our lights on. We certainly have come a long way since those dark days when we had those challenges before. And I think for everybody at home, please keep the lights off. And I know it's hot and you're tempted to switch the heaters to air conditioner mode, but let's be diligent, I think is the message that's coming through. Right, it's my great pleasure now to welcome our last speaker before I ask the President to join us, and I guess she's my boss as well, the chairperson of the SABC. Please put your hands together for Ms. Zandile Shabalala.
His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, Dr. Jacob Zuma, President of the Leadership Corps of the ANC, members of the Leadership Corps of the ANC, Honorable National Ministers present, the Premier of Mpumalanga, Mr. David Mabuza, members of the legislature, MECs, the mayors of the province, councillors, Chairperson of Board of Eskom, Mr. Tsotsi, Chairman of New Age, Mr. Hoa, and the Senior Editor of New Age, Mr. Monson Williams. Business community present, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate and thank our Honorable President, J.G. Zuma, and the leadership of the ANC, both at national level and provincial level, for successfully joining the forces of the ANC to launch the Manifesto and the gala dinner in Mpumalanga. I wish to single out our esteemed Premier, Mr. David Mabuza, excuse me, Mr. David Mabuza, and his formidable team for their commitment to mobilize the forces for this worthwhile experience. Honorable Premier, we appreciate the hospitality Mpumalanga has displayed throughout our stay, and wish to assure you that our learnings will not fall by the wayside. His Excellency, SABC is a proud sponsor of New Age Breakfast Show, and SABC and New Age have formed this partnership purely to harness conversations of national importance in our country, to ensure that all South Africans participate in the political and economic debates, relay positive developments in our country. I know we've been given a tongue lashing on saying this, but this is how we can only make sure that all South Africans are patriotic about their country, because there are a lot of good news that our government has done to date. It resonates very strongly with our mission, which is to empower, educate, and entertain. We view SABC as a cardinal mouthpiece of South African broadcasting landscape, and we continue to strike relationships which enables us to communicate to all South Africans. His Excellency, SABC is ready to cover South African elections in 2014. The launch of our 24 News Hours channel will obviously assist to cover elections more intensely and effectively. We also wish to assure you, Mr. President, that SABC will take a leading role in celebrating 20 years of our freedom and all its activities. In conclusion, we commit ourselves to serve the people of this country by providing them education, entertainment, and information in the languages of their choice. We wish to congratulate and thank you and your leadership once more, Mr. President, for displaying a formidable and achievable results in the past years, and we continue to give support to the initiatives of the leading party, which is the African National Congress. I thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, I'd like to say thank you very much indeed to the chairperson of the SABC, Ms. Zandile Shabalala. Right, now we're going to take our last break before I ask the President to join us on stage. And please don't go away. We've got a lot to discuss. The ruling party's unveiled its manifesto. What do you want to know about it? You can ask your questions right after this.
What time is it? It's question time.
The Jehovah's Witnesses, are you happy with corruption in the countries wherever you exist?
No.
But then that's a position. You are taking a stand against corruption.
We are actually proclaiming a better solution for corruption. The kingdom of God is actually going to bring righteousness across the country.
That's question time with me, Mpomalanga, Monday to Saturday, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Gaming enthusiasts, including us here at Network, indulged in over 80 exhibits that included the Xbox One and Nintendo. Visitors also got to try out PlayStation 4 computer entertainment system, which was unveiled at Rage 2013.
I just came here to see the Xbox One and the PS4, see which one I'd buy.
If you have close to 400,000 Rand to spare, then you can buy the new UHD TV set. Samsung has launched cheaper models, but cheaper doesn't necessarily mean cheap. South Africa has just received the country's first surgical robot, but the robot isn't quite taking over from your surgeon just yet.
That's Network, Sundays, 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Good evening and welcome to Kaleidoscope, the show that brings you the very best of Africa to the world. Just a few kilometers away from the hustle and bustle of the city is an animal sanctuary known as the Lion Park. Our great team went to go check out and see if the lion is still singing tonight.
Among all of the cat's family, cheetahs are the most easiest to train or to tame.
A youth leader in South Africa said if white people don't like it, that the youth are going to lead South Africa, they can adapt or fly. And I said, thank you for the title. So again, I thank politicians for my title.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
De Beers has launched its Venetia underground diamond mine in Messina, Limpopo. President Jacob Zuma officiated. He called on the industry to improve the lives of mine workers.
This project is also significant because it demonstrates confidence in South Africa as an investment destination.
African Bank continues to be punished for toxic debt. Well, earlier we spoke to the head of African Bank's retail operations. He insists that the company is not alone and the profit warning is not unique.
So African Bank is not unique.
That's Business News, weekdays at 8 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back and thanks again for joining us fresh from the festivities and the official proceedings that took place on Saturday at Mbombela Stadium, in which we saw the launch of the ANC's election manifesto. We also heard of the January 8th statement and, of course, the ANC having celebrated 102 years of existence. Now, what we do today is we speak to the ANC top six, led by, of course, President Jacob Zuma, his deputy, the Secretary General, Treasurer General, and the rest of the officials comprising of the top 6. So we'll do that today, and we're basically uncovering some of the details that the President highlighted in terms of the election manifesto, the plan that the ANC has for the next 5 years. We do that in just a moment with Peter, who will be President Jacob Zuma, just addressing some of the issues that were raised on Saturday and going a little bit deeper. So Peter, we quickly hand over to you.
Ayanda, thank you very much indeed. And if you've just joined us, yes, we're having an important conversation with the President of South Africa. The ANC Manifesto, as Ayanda has just said, has been launched. And so you're going to be making some very important decisions later this year. And some of you are going to be voting for the first time. So pay attention. Ask the questions, engage, and get a clarity on what the ANC is offering you for the next 5 years. But to get more on that and to give us an idea of the thinking behind the party, it's my great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome the President of the African National Congress and also the President of South Africa, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just checking whether all my ministers are here to answer questions. Thank you, Director of the Program, Pitandoro. Chairperson of the SABC and New Age Management, ANC officials and members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, Premier Mabuza and other premiers who are present here, ministers and deputy ministers, and all representatives from government, members of parliament and members of the legislatures, Eskom chairperson, captains of commerce and industry, fellow South Africans. On Saturday, we presented ANC Elections Manifesto to the nation. We dedicated the manifesto to the founding president of our young democracy and former ANC president, Isitwalandwe Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. We draw inspiration from Madiba and all founding leaders of our movement who set the direction that this organization should take in building a better life for all its people, especially the poor and the workers. Our manifesto is a pledge to work with people of our country to move South Africa forward. The manifesto is the result of a wide consultation process within the alliance and also communities and key stakeholders of society, including workers, business, religious, youth, and women's organizations, and several academics. We will continue to consult as we embark on its implementation. In our 2009 manifesto, we called for united action and said, working together, we can do more to build our country. Indeed, the people responded. Working together, we have scored enormous achievements in the 5 priorities we had identified health, education, rural development and land reform, creating decent work, and the fight against crime. Great strides have been scored in other areas too. We mark 20 years of freedom this year and are truly proud that South Africa is a much better place to live in now than it was before 1994, and that the past 5 years have advanced, changed further. Thousands more of our people have been lifted out of extreme poverty. We have created more jobs than before, expanded social grants, housing, water, electricity, and other basic services to our people, and further improved access to better education and health care. 2011 census outlined progress in these areas. We have, however, also stated that despite the progress made, the challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment persist. We must now implement radical socio-economic transformation to meaningfully address this triple challenge. That is what our manifesto talks about. We have decided to retain our focus on 5 priorities: education, health, rural development and land reform, creating decent work, and the fight against crime and corruption. There are other areas that we will focus on more intensively as well, such as human settlements, housing, and basic services. While all priorities are equally important, the creation of jobs, especially for the youth, remains critical. This is one of the primary focus areas in our manifesto. One of the key achievements of the past 5 years has been the development of the National Development Plan. The National Development Plan proposes that the unemployment rate should fall from the current rate of about 25% to 14% by 2020 and to 6% by 2030. This, states the plan, requires an additional 11 million jobs. We should all be mindful of the fact that such growth will require an average annual GDP growth of 5.4%. Everybody will need to work hard and play their part to move South Africa forward and ensure that we achieve the prosperous society we all desire. The time for sitting on the fences and pointing fingers will need to stop. We have a country to build together. That is the spirit of our manifesto, united action to move South Africa forward. We have adopted a good plan, the National Development Plan. There is sufficient consensus on the plan. It is supported by an overwhelming majority of stakeholders. We reiterate that the National Development Plan is a living document, which is why we agreed at the last Alliance Economic Summit that alliance partners, COSATU and the SACP, can still make inputs on the economic chapter on matters they wished to engage further on within the National Development Plan vision. We have some critical policy instruments that will continue to drive economies, that will continue to drive government's economic policies agenda. These include a new growth path, which amongst others identifies 6 job drivers: infrastructure development, agriculture, mining and beneficiation, manufacturing, the green economy, and tourism. There is also an industrial policy action plan which supports the reindustrialization of the economy. Beyond this, we are also looking into expanding the public works and community work programs. These programs have created 5 million work opportunities for unemployed people since 1994, and 40% of these were young people. In our manifesto, we have set ourselves a target of 6 million work opportunities. Work opportunities. Ningizwe kahle. In 5 years. Through expanding existing programs such as the community work program. Through this, we aim to provide initial exposure to a work opportunity to at least 4 million young people. Some activities within the community works program include the mass literacy campaign and the National Rural Youth Service Corps, home-based care, early childhood development, working for water and other environmental programs. We are also looking to the infrastructure program, which creates both decent jobs and work opportunities during the building or refurbishment of dams, schools, universities, clinics, roads, and other infrastructure. We propose that in the infrastructure programs, 60% of jobs on new infrastructure projects would be set aside for young people. We also state that public agencies responsible for cooperatives and small enterprise development will be required to develop special programs targeting youth cooperatives and youth enterprises. We encourage the private sector to make use of youth employment incentive schemes to employ young people. Old workers should, under no circumstances, be made to feel insecure due to the Youth Employment Incentive Scheme. We will introduce new regulations to ensure there is no displacement of unsubsidized workers to avoid a multi-tiered labor market within the same sector in respect of both wage categories. all relevant stakeholders will be consulted when we implement the scheme. The impact of the employment incentive scheme will be evaluated within 2 years. Amongst our job creation programs is the promotion of local manufacturing and procurement. The state must buy at least 75% of its goods and services from South African producers. The state's buying power will support small enterprises, cooperatives, and broad-based black economic empowerment. Will ensure that large public entities such as Eskom and Transnet buy specified goods for the infrastructure build program locally. We have stated that we will intensify the fight against corruption and that public servants and public representatives will be prohibited from doing business with the state. We said that all corrupt officials will be made individually liable for all losses incurred as a result of their corrupt actions. The manifesto also states unambiguously that any ANC member or ANC public representative found guilty by a court of law will be expected to step down from any leadership position in the ANC, government, and society. And that where this has not happened, the ANC will take firm action in line with the provisions of the ANC Constitution and conference resolutions. To further prevent corruption, tender processes will be centralized under a central tender board. We believe that this systematic change will bring about a lot of benefit for the country. Let me emphasize as well that corruption must be eradicated in the private sector as well, not only within government. We will thus pursue action against companies involved in bid rigging, price fixing, and corruption in past and current infrastructure build programs. We'll do this using the competition authorities through taking up civil claims and calling on the National Prosecuting Authority to investigate criminally liable behavior. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key traits of our movement is its rich history of internal democracy, tolerance for opposition or opposing political views, and peaceful coexistence with other political parties. The ANC recommits to free political activity in all parts of the country during this election period and beyond. We fought against no-go areas and will be the first party to defend the right of other parties to campaign wherever they wish. We thus wish all political parties well with their election campaigns. Their existence serves to deepen and strengthen our multi-party democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many other aspects of our manifesto dealing with various aspects of socio-economic development. We urge all stakeholders to familiarize themselves with it and engage on it so that we can prepare to move South Africa forward together. In the 2009 manifesto, we said something which remains relevant even today. We said, and I quote, "In the period ahead, South Africa will need a government with both experience and political will, a government that fully understands what needs to be done to address our apartheid past, a government that puts people first, but pili, and builds a participatory democracy. The ANC, working together with the people, can form such a government," unquote. Indeed, we are ready to form such a government after the 2014 elections. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you so much. All right, so our thanks to His Excellency, the President, for addressing us and sharing his thoughts with us and setting the tone for the conversation that's about to take place. And don't forget, you at home can be very much a part of that conversation. What do you want to know about the ANC Manifesto? What do you want to know about how it's going to change your lives, improve your lives? What would you like them to do for you? Now's your opportunity. So get tweeting. We've also got an email address. I'll give you all of those details. But that conversation is going to happen right after this. Stay with us. Right, everybody, this is your last opportunity.
Good day and welcome to yet another evening of Afro Showbiz News.
Kumba is a South African animated film that tells a story of a zebra who looks different.
It's about a zebra who's born with half his stripes, and he goes on a journey through the Karoo to find his stripes.
We've shown it to a few audiences at festivals around the world, and we've had really fantastic responses. So we're very excited to see what the South African population thinks of Kumba.
That's Afro Showbiz News, Saturdays, 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
How does then media balance those two, responsible reporting and also keeping it factual?
If you're a journalist, and especially a journalist writing a story for a front page, you have to report the facts. The fact is she came to like a fashionista to court.
Once again, media be given credit for carrying this story since its inception.
The media has been very brilliant, and I think they walked the extra mile.
Where is the media in giving us the both sides of the story?
One of the issues with e-tolls is that it really has been a hard news story. And so I can understand why social media has been so effective, because breaking news is digital. And so we're going to get breaking news on that platform and then move into the other platforms of media coverage.
That's Media Monitor, Sundays at 9 a.m. on SABC News.
SABC News plays a critical role in providing unbiased and reliable news. We have a well-established reputation of uncovering, reporting and delivering news. A significant growth in popularity of our news demonstrates the demand for our news content. We continue to provide unrivaled coverage of vital events in and out of the country. Wherever the news is happening, we'll be there to bring them to you at the right time. No one has the news covered like SABC News. We lead and they follow. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Hope that you are enjoying this very special broadcast that we've got for you this morning. We've got, of course, the President of the Republic of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, who you just heard from, as well as the top six. So that's what's currently happening right now, that we are assembling the top six, and you'll be able to ask them your questions here on the program. So this is an exciting opportunity for you, a nice way to start off the year 2014, brand new year, an election year, and a year that belongs to you, where you're able to just speak your mind and also ask the questions you'd like to. In order to do that, all you have to do is use that hashtag Morning Live SABC, and we'll monitor it. Well, I'm certainly monitoring it here already and reading some of your comments, and then we'll also pose those questions to the President, who I have no doubt will then send them to the respective ministers that he feels would answer them best if he can't answer them himself. So a lot of people commenting already. Some people saying, this is from Gideon Chapola, saying President Jacob Zuma has intelligent ideas in terms of how to run South Africa out of corruption. I really support his ideas of tenders. That's from Gideon. Here's another one, Richard Molefe, saying, how will the ANC ensure that public servants are paid well to eliminate the theft of state money? That's from Richard Molefe. Another one coming from Joseph Shirinda, who's saying, Mr. Zuma, you are one of the best leaders in the world. Please keep on improving our lives. That's from Joseph Shirinda, writing into Morning Live. That's at Morning Live SABC. So please do send in your comments as well. And Kagiso Mabele saying, how sure is the ANC that the new tender system will not be exposed to corruption and fraud? But it seems like that seems to be the prevailing topic right now, is that, yes, you've said all of this, but how are you going to ensure that it is going to actually work? All right, so we're going to take another break here, a very quick break, and when we return, this is the opportunity we're going to give you to ask questions to the President himself. Stay tuned. How does then media balance those two, responsible reporting and also keeping it factual?
If you're a journalist, and especially a journalist writing a story for a front page, you have to report the facts. The fact is she came to like a fashionista to court.
Once again, media be given credit for carrying this story since its inception.
The media has been very brilliant, and I think they walked the extra mile.
Where is the media in giving us the both sides of the story?
One of the issues with e-tolls is that it really has been a hard news story. And so I can understand why social media has been so effective, because breaking news is digital. And so we're going to get breaking news on that platform and then move into the other platforms of media coverage.
That's Media Monitor, Sundays at 9 a.m. on SABC News.
We've searched long and hard to get a positive voice on e-tolling in South Africa. You are the man on the spot this morning, Doctor.
This is a classic example of people not being able to see the wood for the trees, because we should concentrate on the roads and think about what it was before these roads were improved.
I want to ask you, though, about the profitability of e-tolling and the fact that so much of the profits will be going to Austria. What is your opinion on this?
This is a pretty rubbish argument. Get the emotions out of the way and just appreciate the fact that we've got these first-class roads, and if we want better roads in future, in Cape Town, in Durban, wherever, in Pretoria, we're going to have to pay for it, and this is the most efficient way to pay for it.
I think I'm going to ask the Minister of Transport to take you on a road show, sir.
Watch Newsroom with me, Eben Janssen. Weekdays at 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on SABC News.
Right, a very warm welcome back. If you've just joined us, we're in Nelspruit today for the latest in the series of New Age business briefings brought to you by the SABC. And we're in conversation with the president of the African National Congress, who also happens to have a day job as the president of the country. His Excellency President Jacob Zuma has been talking to us, and just before the break spoke about the challenges that face our country and the next phase of our country's development, radical economic social transformation, he described it, with priorities around education, health, rural development, land reform and food security, job creation, decent work and sustainable livelihoods, and also fighting crime and corruption. This is all contained in the manifesto, which was unveiled at the weekend as he addressed us with the January 8th statement. And we're in conversation with him now, and don't forget, you too can be part of that conversation. Hashtag TNA BizBrief, also at Morning Live SABC. Send us your tweets, and we'll put the questions through to the President. And we've also got on the floor senior members of the ANC, chairpersons of the various subcommittees relating particularly to this manifesto, and also relevant cabinet ministers that will be able to address all and any of your questions, so that when the elections do happen, you'll be informed and you'll know where you're putting your cross and why. Right, let's get into that conversation. Mr. President, thank you very much indeed for joining us, as usual.
Thank you very
much. We've been doing this for a while now, and the beginning of each year, I always feel like saying, how was last year? Another difficult time. It's not an easy job being president.
Well, last year was 1 year, and for some reason it moved very fast. I think it moved very fast because there were a lot of activities, and I think we're able to see a lot of what we had put in place really becoming realistic in terms of implementation, etc. But it was a year of many challenges. As you know, wherever we are in the world, the global economic difficulties face every country. So it's not like we are just moving in a normal kind of a situation. That still persisted, but the year was quite very busy, very active, and I think we were able to score a lot of other things in the process of that. I'm sure this year is going to be as busy as the last year, if not more, because this year, as you know, there are elections as well. But last year, particularly, people were beginning to look at this year as well, given what is going to happen this year. So it was a busy year, granted.
So ANC is 102 years old. A lot of changes have taken place over the century in 2 years, and I would even say perhaps even in the last 5. What do you say to people who are constantly saying that the ANC of today is nothing like the ANC of old, and that things have changed and it's just not the same party?
Well, the ANC will remain the same because it has policies, principles, it has values. Some of the values and principles which were articulated by the ANC at its founding are still relevant today. What has happened is the changing of the circumstances or the situations over a century. But I think what has been the strength of the ANC is to be able to adapt its policies to new conditions. Some of its policies are everlasting. They can fit in any kind of a situation. But the strength of the ANC is that it can adapt to new conditions. It can quickly work on new tactics and strategies and adopt new policies. I was saying on the gala dinner that we took longer in the struggle and became experts of fighting a very powerful kind of oppressor. That in 20 years, we have also become very experienced in governance. We get better all the time. And that's the nature and the character of the ANC. And that's why the ANC, unlike perhaps many other liberation movements, would come and with changing situation would change to be something else. The ANC remains. If anything, it actually gets more stronger. It becomes more clearer,
on the issues, because it also does what is in the culture of the ANC, to debate and discuss the issues and look at the issues and find ways and means how to solve the new issues. And that's why it remains vibrant, it remains fresh, it is always ready to tackle issues that come.
All right, you say it's stronger, but the reality is many people have left the party, started other parties. We've had ANC members become independents and fight the ANC. So what's happening inside the ANC that we're seeing this division, because I can't call it anything else, that's taking place? What's happening at this time in the ANC's history that you're facing these challenges?
Well, in the history of the ANC, there are many people who always moved off because of certain views or certain things. It's not a new thing. At times, people think that it is a new thing. It's not a new thing. Because the ANC is a vibrant organization, the debating organization. People have a right to have views and argue. At times, I've got, for an example, if I'm sure the memory of many will come, in the late 50s, a very big chunk of the ANC called the PA, we called itself PAC, moved off, and it became an organization. And there has been, and there were very specific reasons why that happened in the ANC. All the time there are reasons, but the ANC remains. I think it would not be an organization that is alive, because we come across challenges, we take turns, we move, there are new challenges. I can tell you that when the ANC changed policy from non-violent policy to the armed struggle, some ANC members had different views. Some decided to pull back, but some came back. But the ANC is always correct. That's why even those who leave, at the end they will come back, because the ANC has everlasting policies, and our policies are correct.
So you suspect that Julius Malema will be back one day?
I would not be surprised. I can tell you, I'll never be surprised.
Okay, there is a layer of young people that are coming through the system, and they're going to be voting for the first time come April, when the date that is set. And one young man called Shweshwe says, as a young South African whose vote counts, how is the head of state and the ANC planning to address my insecurities and restore the confidence that I have lost? There's a challenge that these young people have. They're not 100% convinced that they should vote ANC. They don't want to vote anybody else, so there might be some apathy that's going to come through. How do we restore his confidence, Shweshwe? This is a kind of message that I've been seeing quite a lot in the Twitter sphere. They seem to be not convinced. Are you in touch with them? Are you communicating with them? Why isn't your message getting through to them?
Well, I'm not certain how much of that is dominant. There could be a view, and I know that in South Africa, we are very fond of exaggerating views or thinkings of other people. Because I'm not sure how much that, because the ANC is supported by a lot of young people in this country, and they do vote ANC as well. It doesn't mean there wouldn't be those who will have their own views. And this is not a new thing. It has always happened. But what I think we should accept is that the ANC views and policies have always been dominant. If you talk about young people today, I'm not sure what else will they be saying convinces them outside of the ANC policies. Because I haven't seen any logical, serious policy alternatives. I've seen people who are saying, look, we must have different views, we are not happy, but I can't get the basis. What is it that they are talking about? Some people say, for an example, new young people who were born after 1994
they've got different views, as if they are not South Africans, they come from the mass. Not at all. They are here. They can see the challenge that face the country. And theirs is to make the choice. Where do you go? If you accept that we still have challenges in the country, the question is, what is that you think must be done? And if we have not thought of that, who is saying we needed to do something? And what is it that people say we must do? And I think the ANC still says we have the better policies. And it does have the better policies. And what informs a person who says, look, I'm not convinced? What else would convince anyone, if not the ANC policies? Because you have got to articulate what you believe needs to be done. I think it is important to say as a South African, what is that I can do as a citizen of this country? If the ANC you believe is not doing well, what is that you think needs to be done? Who must do it? I think for people who are not very much involved, who have got no responsibility, who just sit and criticize, I don't take them very seriously. But they've got nothing to offer in the country. All they have is criticisms. Now, if you listen to them, you may not be able to govern this country.
One of the... there's a lot to cover. We're going to go to the tables just now, but one of the things that you said is one of the core values of the ANC is discipline. And I want to ask you what your thoughts are on two things that I saw which raised my... more recently, yesterday, Julius Malema tried perhaps political opportunism to give this house opposite your residence. But what happened is that he was prevented from getting there. They pelted him with bottles. That's one incident. And also last year at former President Nelson Mandela's funeral, the booing that took place, that must have hurt you. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on A, the booing, what happened yesterday, and is this a tone for what might happen in the lead up to the elections?
Well, if you take the Malema situation, Malema found somebody who's poor, who has no house, and offered to do so, and the person agreed, and indeed he came to build the house. There's nothing wrong with that for a person who has the means to help. Absolutely nothing wrong. I don't have the details of what happened, what is that provoked what Kola might have wrong side of the story. Because what I was told, if that's true, I don't know, is that after that Malem wanted to walk into my homestead, and I was told people are stopping him from doing so. I don't know whether that's true. In any way, we do not approve violent action against people who are exercising their democratic right in a space where we have democracy. We don't. Our members will certainly talk to them as to what was the issue. At the moment, I can't be firm to say, look, this is what happened. But whatever could have provoked it, it's a wrong thing. People should be given a free space. This is a democratic country. It means we need to do more political work to our members. That if somebody is active somehow, don't interfere. Because on our own, when we do things, we wouldn't want people to interfere with us. That's a kind of belief we have as a movement. And that's what we continuously educate our own members. And therefore would not condone that action against Malema. He has a right to be anywhere, even at the doorstep of Jacob Zuma's house. He has a right, as long as it does not interfere with my home anyway.
And this... okay. And the booing of Jacob Zuma?
That one, I think what people miss is that in politics, there are many tactics that people use if they disagree. Booing is part of a political activity. What's the problem? If people have a view and they want to express, it's not violent at all. It's expressing whatever. Now, there are many ways of doing it. Some engage, some shout, some boo. If, for an example, people were saying, well, Zuma must be embarrassed in front of these heads of state. Those heads of state have been booed in their own country. It's a normal political exercise.
But what it
only in South Africa is going to be twisted and tweaked and be made as if it's a big thing. It is part of politics. Heckling in parliament, even the most civilized members of parliament, heckling is part of politics. Booing is part of expressing a particular view. And people may be wrong in what they are thinking because they've not engaged. So there's nothing. I was never worried about it.
Okay. All right. We've got lots to unpack, but let's give an opportunity to you at home and various people on the floor here. And we're going to start asking the people here to put their questions through to the President. Sam Nape, you're going to be first, and you're on table number 6. But we're going to take a commercial break first, and right after that, we'll be talking to you and you here as well. Stay with us for that.
Hello and welcome to Rights and Recourse, the show that explores your legal rights and recourse to those violated. I'm your host, Dumila Matez. Will the ban on alcohol, or the marketing of alcoholic beverages, include things like sorghum beer, homemade beer, and those kind of things?
I think what is must be clear is that we are not banning the industry, not at all. We are controlling the industry.
As I'm sitting here, I'm actually agreeing with the minister violently.
Advertisement says to young people, it's cool to drink. Drinking is associated with success. Drinking is associated with celebrities.
We cannot afford to have adverts on television that glorifies alcohol.
That's Rights and Recourse, Sundays 2 p.m. on SABC News.
Good evening and welcome to Kaleidoscope, the show that brings you the very best of Africa to the world. Just a few kilometers away from the hustle and bustle of the city is an animal sanctuary known as the Lion Park. Our great team went to go check out and see if the lion is still singing tonight.
Among all of the cat's family, cheetahs are the most easiest to train or to tame.
A youth leader in South Africa said if white people don't like it, that the youth are going to lead South Africa, they can adapt or fly. And I said, thank you for the title. So again, I thank politicians for my title.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back and thanks again for joining us. We continue with another one of our SABC TNA special business breakfast meetings. And at this very table is where you'll find the ANC's top 6. President Jacob Zuma, of course, speaking to Peter up on the stage. His deputy, I can see to my far right there, Cyril Ramaphosa. And you can see Mbombela sitting here, the national chair. Secretary General Gwede Mandashe, his deputy there, Jesse Duarte. And having gone to attend to some business is Zweli Mkhize, of course, there, the Treasurer General. And this is where we begin on the floor. And I'll speak to the Secretary General, Gwede Mandashe, and ask about an issue that President Jacob Zuma touched on not only on Saturday, but this morning as well. And that is the issue of corruption. Of course, the President saying the tender process has been seen somewhat as problematic. Some changes have been put in place to try and address that. And also saying that those who are found with their hands in the cookie jar, as it were, or found to have transgressed will have to face the law and also be removed from their position of office. Now, Secretary General, I want to ask from you how serious this commitment is. We've seen in the past that somewhat those who've been found guilty of transgression will be asked to perhaps make a short apology, give a fine or two, but will be chuffed somewhere, either in Parliament or in other positions, and won't be asked to completely vacate their positions as public servants. How serious is the ANC when it comes to the issue of corruption?
All right, Ayanda, just before you answer, Secretary General, there is someone who wants to add to that question. Sam Nape, so that he can answer both questions at the same time. Sam is on table 6. Sam, just ask your question very quickly so that we can get Secretary General to answer both, because they're related and I don't want you to get left behind.
Thank you, Program Director. Yes, the way corruption slips out of our tongues on a daily basis. And what perturbs me very much at the moment is, what is the ruling party doing about this, especially when we had an incident in Natal where the premier is not accepted by his own party. Instead, they would like to have someone, instead of the premier, who is anti-corruption. So we want to know the standpoint of the ANC on this point, in solving this problem within the House itself. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Mantaj, if you can answer that for us, please.
I think the first thing that we should appreciate is that before 1994, many of the institutions that are fighting corruption were not in place. Whether it is the public protector or the SIU, you can list them. They were established by the ANC government. That in itself is a message of how committed the ANC is on fighting corruption. And everything they do up to today is respected by the African National Congress. And this question, we're taking that a step forward now. We say people who are found guilty of corrupt activities are expected to step down themselves. If they fail to do so, the ANC will invoke its internal processes to deal with that situation. That is a serious commitment. You must remember that in Mangaung, we took a resolution to that direction, including the establishment of the Integrity Commission by the ANC. All that is pulling together all interventions that are quite serious in terms of fighting corruption. So we're not going to be having enemies when it comes to corruption. This thing of people not being taken off altogether, I think that is being economical with fact. Look at a number of people who have totally left government without being found guilty by the court, many of them purely on the recommendation of the public protector reports, and they go out and leave government altogether, many of them. There will be exceptions of those who resist that, but we pursue those actions that, listen, you have been found guilty of a serious offense, step aside. I think I don't want to join the debate on conspiracy about the Premier of KZN. We have confirmed Senzo Mchunu as the Premier of KZN, as the ANC. Now, who are these people who hate him because he fights corruption? It's a myth, and it's a myth that is mischievous. I don't think we should even entertain, because conspiracy, unfortunately, doesn't need proof. It's like something called a sauce in the media. You can manufacture stories and we all run for cover.
All right, moving along, also taking another question here. The year of united action to move South Africa forward. That's the theme for 2014, as mentioned by President Jacob Zuma. I want to ask now his deputy in the ANC, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. Unity, I think, is the word that I picked up in the theme for the year. The NDP and yourself having played a very pivotal role in the development thereof as deputy chair. Tell me about what the process is at the moment in terms of making sure that all parties concerned, including all that are part of the ANC tripartite alliance, that all are on board for the National Development Plan.
Well, you will have heard the President say there is sufficient consensus. Now, that is a term that was crafted when we were negotiating the Constitution. But I would like to say to the President, on the NDP, President, there is even more than sufficient consensus, because the support for the NDP is really countrywide. Various institutions, and you name them, right from the youth, business, churches, sporting organizations, the works, support the National Development Plan. And the National Development Plan also informs the vision of our manifesto. It's clearly stated there that we see it as a clear vision, and it's a vision for the country. The government has embraced the National Development Plan, and much of the work that is now being done in government in terms of planning, forward and which will be implemented in President Jacob Zuma's new administration after the ANC has won the elections is going to be based on the National Development Plan. Various government departments are already gearing themselves up to plan their activities, their programs in accordance with the National Development Plan. So it's an overarching plan that's going to be implemented. And the President said, there are those who want either additions, clarifications, or whatever, and because it's a living document, it permits that to happen. Our alliance partners, some of them would like to see certain areas emphasized, certain areas clarified more. We allow that to happen because it is a living document. And that is what a plan is all about. But we also add in the manifesto that we are now going to build greater capacity and institutionalize planning within government. And that is a process that is going to put us on a much higher, better plane in terms of implementing what we have set out in the manifesto. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Peter, Mr. Ramaphosa, they're predicting a victory, perhaps looking into his crystal ball or going in with confidence into these elections, saying that, when the ANC wins. So it's over to you. Perhaps we can continue. I know lots of questions are being asked.
Mr. President, a victory has been predicted. Are you going for the 2/3? And if so, why is it important?
Well, the victory is predicted. There's no doubt about it. I think the one who can doubt that the ANC is going to win elections must be living in another country. I think you would agree, for an example, that we launched our manifesto in a massive meeting, public meeting. Who else has done so in the country? Who else can do so? Now, why should you have a doubt? I think there's no doubt that elections we will win. It's a question of the percentage, really. Partly, it's not because we wish it. We have superior policies. There is no alternative to our policy. That's a reality in a democratic situation. And South Africans participate in the process of our policies, and they're part of it, and they know it. And that they will therefore make their choices informed by policies. I don't think people make policies because of the slogans. Slogans are one thing. They could excite people. But the reality is that policies that count. Now, we talk about the 2/3. Why 2/3? I think it's important for any party to have serious majority, particularly like the ANC. The ANC belongs to the people of this country. It has policies to move in this country. I know why you're asking the question, because I said in Ganyamazan, we must have more majority so that we could change things that would make us move forward. Although people decided to put a word in my mouth that I said constitution, not necessarily. You have got laws, you've got everything that you need to pass. Now, if you have progressive policies and you get, in a sense, prevented by unprogressive things, what must you do? You must clear the way so that you can introduce progressiveness and move South Africa faster. That's what we are talking about. Not the Constitution. The Constitution has been amended since 1994 many times. It's nothing new. There's no breaking news story about it. So people talk as if nothing has happened. It has actually happened. And then many people, even oppositions, wanted to change the Constitution. They want to change, for an example, the system in Parliament. If you do so, you've got to change the Constitution. Now, everybody, if those who have views, they will feel we need to do certain things in order to move forward in a particular direction. There's no doubt about it. All we need is sufficient, comfortable majority so that we can take the progressive decision.
Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about policy just now, but let's go to Surya AK. Is it Surya AK, table 24? You have a question, and I would think that, Madam Chairperson, you might be able to address this particular question. Surya?
Good morning, Mr. President, and fellow people that are here. All protocol observed. My
absolute acknowledgement of you in the House. The question is, with regard to the speech that was delivered by our President over the weekend, I want to talk about the programs that you're talking about, Mr. President, that you alluded to. Will that accommodate the issues of financial wellness for the people that needs to be capacitated within the ANC? Thank you.
Madam Chairperson, let me ask you to answer that question. Capacitating the ANC branches with their programs, will that include financial wellness programs as well?
You know, the African National Congress has structures, has procedures, has structures where issues are addressed, depending on the nature of the particular issue. So we have, among other structures at head office, a treasury. The Treasurer General of the ANC works together with provincial treasurers and issues of the needs of the African National Congress in order for its program to be implemented are mainly dealt with there. When it comes to financial wealth, I don't know what the question is referring to exactly. Financial wealth that would concern the ANC would be that which is relating to its work, the implementation of its policies as decided by conference, and everything that has to do with the ANC. Nothing to do with personal wealth or things of that nature. The ANC does not deal with those kinds of things except where it relates to policy as to how, as the African National Congress, we lead society in how best to be very well organized and do things according to the will of the majority of our people. And those issues were usually informed by our branches because they live among our communities, they live among our people, and it's there that we see how the ANC lives and the ANC leads. It leads also where there are particular types of problems. Thank you.
Okay. Table 24, Bushamana Jonas, was it Jonas? Jonas, if you have a question on policy, land reform, where are you?
Yes, thank you very much. I think we must welcome the decisive and comprehensive manifesto of the African National Congress. Mr. President, on the land reform and redistribution process, while there has been significant improvement, I just wanted to check as to whether we will be able to bring a new approach, especially in terms of the willing buyer, willing seller approach, which has proved to be a challenge in the past. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. President?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for that question. Certainly, yes. I think we have said very clearly that the willing seller, willing buyer approach has not sufficiently addressed the question of the land. As you know, is one of the very critical issues historically, and is an issue that if we don't resolve, it will remain an issue that will always persist. And this was said by one of our leaders, Dada Susul, that the issue of the land will persist until we find a solution. So we have come up, but no, let me also say that part of the reason, for an example, we reopened the land claims was precisely because it was very superficial, the manner in which we had done it. And we are working on it, and Minister Nkwinti is working on greater details as to how do we move forward. And we will continue to do so. We can't even say the measures that we have introduced now are sufficient. I think they will be proved by time. We are going to be looking at things as we go. For an example, this is just a point I'm making personally, that there is an issue of people who own too much land when others don't have even a piece of land. And it might be commercial, it might not be commercial. We might reach a point where we say, can in fact in South Africa, when other citizens don't have any land, people have more than enough land. Shouldn't we look into that and say, how do we handle this? But for now, as we articulated in the manifesto, we are making specific adjustments to address the issue. And even to look at what we have done, even in the process of the kind of market-related things that we needed to do, did we have the program that actually talked to what happens when people get the land, when the land had been productive before? We've seen the shortcomings there. We are improving even on those ones. So it's a matter that is going to be ongoing, the issue of the land, until we have addressed it sufficiently.
Okay, table number 35. Is that Takalani Chivenga? Table 35. Takalani Chivenga.
Good morning, Mr. President and the House at large. The division between ANC and the labor movement is dividing both the organization and the ordinary voters. What is the President or the ANC doing about it?
Well, thank you. Well, I'm not sure whether the question is accurate, just to say there's a division between the ANC and the labor movement. Well, there's a division within the labor movement itself. I think you should have completed it at that point. Now, I don't think anyone would say the labor movement and the ANC would agree in every aspect of policy. Otherwise, it would be artificial. We have a clear understanding that we have an alliance that broadly we share the same sentiments, the same policies, and same views. But there are specific issues that are worker-related that needs the union to be very specific on. That would actually need the union to say, here we can't move. Because if they moved, they would be, in a sense, sacrificing the workers' kind of rights. But there are things as well that must be expected that the ANC will say, here we cannot move. The labor looks at the interests of the workers, very specific. The ANC looks at the interests of the country, which accommodates many sectors with different views and differing interests. The question is, how do you handle that? How do you understand that kind of a difference? That is why in the alliance we use the term a minimum program of the alliance. It cannot be maximum. It can't. Now, if all of us, whether in the labor or in the ANC, fail to understand that difference, then we have a problem. Because we are likely to overstretch issues that are not supposed to be overstretched. And begin to think that, in fact, as a labor movement, you need to determine how the government of the party, the ANC, must continue governing and implementing policy. Because it cannot happen. There are areas where the government will have to govern even if the views are different. The question is, how to handle those differences? And it comes back at times to the understanding and the maturity. Because you cannot say, because we are in the alliance, we are going to agree on everything. The ANC can't fight the conditions at the effective floor. It's not our area. But again, it's a question of how these two deal with the matter. Generally, the differences come when people miss the point, when people have misunderstandings and misconceptions about certain things. When, for an example, if labor believes it can co-govern, that's a mistake, you can't. Because if that was the case, it would be another system. We have a democratic system that allows us to work together. This arrangement is a unique arrangement in the world of the alliance in South Africa. It has to be handled very carefully by those who are in the leadership, because it is an important arrangement that takes the country forward. It lessens the contradictions or conflict between labor and government. We have the best system. And of course, whilst doing so, we allow an open debate. But that debate must be debated and come to a conclusion. The point, for an example, I was making at the gala dinner about the National Development Plan. You can't have a union saying this cannot be implemented, almost putting itself as an opposition. That's a failure to understand how would the basics of democracy work. Because once it is agreed, once it is a broader policy of the movement, this is what you should say. In fact, it is unprecedented that a country agrees to a national development plan, and any progressive will say this is what needs to be supported. But it's a matter that we are saying, as the alliance, we continue debating these matters. We continued debating these matters over the years. It's not the first time. And I'm sure other people see it for the first time. Even the Freedom Charter, we debated it for many years. Because there were aspects of it that other people felt more comfortable. There were aspects sometimes they did not feel comfortable. So it is not a problem. What you could find, there are some people, of course, can speak very violently, very strongly, as if their point is correct when it is not necessarily correct. But it's a question of time that we'll be able to convince one another, because the ANC has always been correct in the majority of cases. And we are sure we'll persuade one another within the alliance. I think you heard the president of COSATU at the launch of the manifesto. He made the point very clear. We debated the issues, some of which are in the manifesto, some of which are not there. But that's how far we could go. That's a correct way, that's a culture, that's how we operate. There is no crisis.
Mr. President, just to follow on that, just before we take a quick break, how do we explain it to the voters who have to make a decision? Because they've always seen this solid alliance, Labour, SACP, ANC. We heard, as you said, the president of COSATU, Mr. Dlamini, say that we're on board, we support the manifesto, etc. But we do have NUMSA within there who's saying they're not going to support the ANC. And Treasurer General, I think, said that that was a political statement. How do we explain to the voters then when we see one of your key partners within Labour saying that they're not going to support you?
Firstly, it's not COSATU which says so, which we are in alliance with. And NUMSA is an affiliate of COSATU. And I think that should be clear. So it's not therefore that the word the Labour is saying something different. It's a union. And it has absolutely a free right to say so. Ours is to engage NUMSA, and we are engaging NUMSA to debate that issue. What are the reasons? Because we must be clear, what is it that makes NUMSA to say you don't? If you say it's National Development Plan, then we have an issue, and we have got to raise the issue with them. Whatever other issue, we have the points to make. So we can't make a conclusion. All what we are going to say to the voters, these are our colleagues and comrades. They've got a different view for now. We don't agree with them. This is a line we believe everybody is following. However, we are engaging them. We want them to change their minds and vote for the ANC. So we're going to engage them. We're going to campaign them to vote for the ANC as well, with their views.
Okay. On that note, we'll take a quick break and we'll start getting into the last session of this particular conversation. So don't go away and be part of it as well. Thank you.
How does then media balance those two, responsible reporting and also keeping it factual?
If you're a journalist, and especially a journalist writing a story for a front page, you have to report the facts. The fact is she came to like a fashionista to court.
Once again, media be given credit for carrying this story since its inception.
The media has been very brilliant, and I think they walked the extra mile.
Where is the media in giving us the both sides of the story?
one of the issues with e-tolls is that it really has been a hard news story. And so I can understand why social media has been so effective, because breaking news is digital. And so we're going to get breaking news on that platform and then move into the other platforms of media coverage.
That's Media Monitor, Sundays at 9 a.m. on SABC News.
Good evening and welcome to Kaleidoscope, the show that brings you the very best of Africa to the world. Just a few kilometers away from the hustle and bustle of the city is an animal sanctuary known as the Lion Park. Our great team went to go check out and see if the lion is still singing tonight.
Among all of the cat's family, cheetahs are the most easiest to train or to tame.
A youth leader in South Africa said if white people don't like it, that the youth are going to lead South Africa, they can adapt or fly. And I said, thank you for the title. So again, I thank politicians for my title.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Right, welcome back, everybody. A very interesting TNA that we're having this morning. The President, our special guest here, kicking off the year, the ANC Manifesto released over the weekend, and of course now thrashing it out on other issues that are affecting the ANC in the lead up to these elections. I think one of the lines that certainly stands out is the President saying that for those that doubt the ANC is going to win these elections, they must be living in another country. That's what our President, Jacob Zuma, had to say. Now I'm busy reading some of the comments that are coming out from the public, as well as some of the questions. So let me pose one or two to you. And I think in a nutshell, I can't pose all of them because we just don't have time. But certainly one that's coming out quite clearly, Peter and President Zuma, is the fact that people living in rural areas, they want to know what's going to be done for them, and not just areas, particularly in your more urban areas. What is going to happen, particularly with schooling in rural areas, houses in rural areas, hospitals in rural areas? It always seems that this is the predominant issue that's coming out here from the people at home. Other people also asking that we have to educate people about the ANC policies. That's what we need to do, because some people just don't understand them, and we need to make them more. Another one, Mormo Moto, saying tenders are not benefiting the people of this country with nothing, only those that have the power in government. We need to get rid of them. That's another one that some people are saying. But I think if we can, at this point, address underprivileged schooling. Again, Judy Stevens, Mr. President, as a white granny, give me a chance to tablet each a group of underprivileged preschoolers so that people can help there. Well, there you have it. I think that it's summarizing it all. What are we going to do for the rural areas here in South Africa? Housing, hospitals, and schooling.
All right, Leanne, thank you very much indeed. In fact, we're going to try and get some very quick responses because we're running out of time. Rural development, they're feeling that they're being left behind. What can we do to accelerate development in the rural areas, particularly around schooling and housing?
Well, generally in societies, rural areas don't develop at the same rate as the urban areas. I think that's a feature globally. But in our case, I think in the rolling out of the infrastructure, we have talked about rural areas very strongly. For an example, the building of schools. You know, if we were asked last what was happening last year, you know we've been launching a school every week in the rural areas. This is a reality. We've been able to build, furbish schools in rural areas. If we talk about roads, infrastructure, it is the rural areas that we're talking about, and the hospitals furbishment in the rural areas. So there is something happening in the rural areas. The Rural Development Department is actually working very hard in the rural areas. Just a few days ago, I handed over a very important land claim in Mpumalanga, in this very province, wherein not just a farm or a piece of land, but a very successful game park, which is going to be under the hands of the communities. These are activities that are taking place. I also noticed that Leanne was saying, people say people have not heard more of what the ANC is doing, what the policy is doing. Who must be blamed for that? It's people who say they've got the responsibility to report in this country, but they don't report the good stories. That's a problem. That's why people are not aware.
Okay. All right. I'm going to hand back to you, but just add in that conversation you're having there, tenders are not benefiting the people on the ground. That seems to come through. So if you could, as you address the top 6 there, they could address that.
Thank you so much, Peter. And indeed, we have touched on the issue of tenders and allegations of corruption therein. We've spoken to the Secretary General, who said that mechanisms are being put in place to make sure that the processes do benefit everybody at large and that they're done so above board. But what I want to look at now is the election on the ground. We know that the National Executive Committee of the ANC has voted for in Mangaung at the National Conference there in 2002. They've compiled the election manifesto after election forums have taken place across the country to receive the mandate for the election manifesto. And speaking to one person who's in charge of the election machinery there, Malusi Gigaba, a little bit earlier, saying to us they are ready to hit the ground running, door-to-door campaigns, use of Twitter and Facebook to inform people of policies, including the tender processes and what they have in store for the next 5 years for the ANC. But one aspect that we need not forget is that this will be the first post-democracy election in which we have the absence of Utata Nelson Mandela. So he's been a key figure for the ANC throughout the elections. You've seen him many a times at the various festivities or celebrations or conferences. So what we want to know from someone who worked very closely with Utata Nelson Mandela is, of course, the Deputy Secretary General, Jesu Duarte. We want to find out about fears that people are saying they're afraid that the ANC will somehow manipulate the memory of Utata by pulling at the heartstrings of South Africans, saying, vote for the ANC in honor of Madiba. Are those fears justified, ma'am?
Thank you very much. Good morning. Well, I think, no, the fears are not justified. I think that the late Comrade Nelson Mandela said that after he passed away, if there was no ANC branch where he was going to, he didn't indicate where, he would join one. He would find one and join one. We're not appropriating somebody who did not dedicate his life, his entire life, to the values and the policies of the ANC, which this manifesto is based on. The manifesto is based on the policy and values of the ANC, which the late Comrade Mandela subscribed to.
Thank you so much. Short, sweet, and to the point. And once that has been addressed, Peter, I'm going to hand back to you because I know we're extremely pressed for time. So the issues of tender, other policies that we need to discuss, I'm going to hope that perhaps one of the questions that you have in your hand there will have to deal with that.
All right. Look, we're running out of time, so I'm going to ask the various members that we're going to ask these questions if they can be very quick. Minister Gigaba, 6 million job opportunities. I heard very carefully, Mr. President. Job opportunities. How are you going to do that, and are they sustainable? If you could answer that very quickly, because our youth are desperate for those jobs.
Well, over the last 20 years, the government has dedicated a lot of time through various community works programs to create job opportunities in the public works area. And we are going to intensify that. Now, a number of activities will be undertaken. The Department of Public Works does have the budget, they do have the programs, and they are going to unveil these programs going forward. But in so doing, we will be looking at community-based programs, we will be looking at programs that enhance the skills of the youth, that enhance that are durable and therefore sustainable, and they will be working alongside provincial and municipal governments as well as alongside other state institutions.
But will they be sustainable? That's the key.
They will be sustainable, And even in instances where they are short-term programs, the idea is to ensure that we get young people into employment so that we can help them develop the experience they need to be able to get jobs on an ongoing basis.
Okay. Let's go to Treasurer General Zwelim Kize. How is it that the Youth League went broke?
It's left.
Oh, is he gone? Oh, unfortunately. He's on his way back. We'll ask him that question. Minister Natim Tetwa, are we going to be safe? Crime is a big issue with people in South Africa.
Thanks. If you look at the emphasis of creating job opportunities, it augurs well with the fight against crime, because we've always emphasized the point that the battle against crime cannot be separated from the war on want. And for us, that's the winning way of ensuring that people are engaged in job opportunities, are working, and people have other things to do, and that will help us to ensure that we succeed in the fight against crime.
Okay. Mr. President, an interesting question was raised by Mandlakazi Mpatwa Siqawu, who says, do you feel that the media sometimes misrepresents you, misquotes you? If so, what one issue would you like to clarify in your own words?
No. I can't sit and say, well, this one, you said this, I said that. I don't think we can do that. All I was saying is that the reporting, insofar as we are concerned, what we are doing, what we do on a continuous basis, is not sufficiently reported. That's the point we are making. What dominates the media in this country is criticisms and negativity. On the balance, we are not saying people should not be critical, should not be negative if they want to. It's a free country. But we are saying what we do as government is not sufficiently reported. As a result, people are not aware. In fact, when we were indicating what we have done in the last 20 years, some people are surprised. Why? If the media has been reporting all the time. Well, these things have been reported. We've been launching programs. We've been launching projects. But people are not aware. At times, you sit in a meeting. You participate in the meeting. When you hear the reporting, you think it's a different meeting. Why is that? We can't explain. You know, there are specific things. For an example, I was in Nyamaza, just to take an Izwa. I say, you know, this is my familiar place, Bengtagatala, during the struggle. And they say, I was a witchcraft. I was bewitching people. They don't even bother to ask me when you finish, what do you mean by this? Because all I was saying, under apartheid, we operated in Mpumalanga. Mpumalanga was adjacent to Swaziland and Mozambique. I had structures there. I moved into that area. This is what I was saying. They don't bother to ask. They actually, throughout internationally, Zuma admits he's a witch.
All right. Unfortunately, it's just one of those sad things that we run out of time with these conversations, and just as we're gaining momentum. But Ayanda, I think let's try and start wrapping this conversation up.
Indeed, let's wrap it. And there you have it at home. It's all about making informed decisions. And that's why we have these public dialogues, to make sure that you get your answers and you hear them unedited. So there's no space for misquoting. There's no space for adding spice and salt in that. So you've heard the answers straight here. Unfortunately, never enough time for such platforms and such dialogues. Our apology to those who are seated here who have not had the opportunity to have their questions answered. But I think this is an ongoing discussions. We will forward all the details and the questions to the relevant people. But this is where we leave it today from Mpumalanga. We say goodbye to you. Thanks again for joining us.